Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. We make Chris Skinner's Countryside podcast, and we've got something very exciting to share with you. We have a new service that's being launched, and it's called Spoken Stories.
Spoken Stories is all about recording the voices and memories of your loved ones in outstanding quality, so they can be enjoyed for generations to come. For example, you know the story that Grandma tells that everyone in the family has heard before. Well, Spoken Stories is about getting those stories down and preserving them for your family history. Spoken Stories is about gifting someone the time to capture these personalities and unique voices.
We record your loved ones' tales, whether it's their whole life story so far or something more specific like a life-changing event. It is a gorgeous experience, and what you're left with is a beautiful monologue that really captures the essence of that person.
Think of it like an audio portrait, and take a listen to a snippet of this one from Diane's spoken story, recorded in her beautiful garden.
I was born in 1951 at Newmarket, and unfortunately I didn't see Mum for a year. I was looked after by a lovely nurse called Diane, my name, because my mum had TB when I was born. And so my mother never worked because with her problem with her, lungs, she had to go and have it sort of pumped up every so often. She used to do a lot of dressmaking, so she always made our clothes years ago. But yeah, she was a lovely mum, yeah, and Dad as well, yeah. That's very nice childhood I had, yeah, very nice. Yeah. I got married February the 16th, 1974. The weather was gorgeous. I ended up having to put on a big sort of T-shirt under my wedding dress I didn't need. I had a lovely one of those transparent umbrellas in case it rained, and it was just a beautiful day. I think I'm always sort of quite cheerful. I mean, if I go down the Luke and deliver some eggs to somebody, I'll meet somebody and chat, and then Paul say, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been chatting to people." That's just my way. That's just how I am. We've always lived here. We had this built in 1974. They put the footings down in February and we moved in the August. Years ago, I used to go around the village on a bike, and when I had Ian, he'd sit on the back. We live in a lovely area. We've got lovely neighbours. They help us all out, which you all do with neighbours, and that's very, very nice. And as I said to Paul, I'm hoping we can keep this place on until, well, I don't want to move from here until I go out in a brown box. I hope that's not too soon.
If you'd like more information about Spoken Stories and to take advantage of our special introductory offer, you can head to www.soundyard.org/spoken stories.
And keep listening after this episode with Chris, and you'll hear another example of a spoken story. It's a view of the world from a 6-year-old.
Chris Skinner's Countryside podcast with Matthew Gudgeon.
Seatbelts off, engine off. Rat is here. Oh, and look, Rat's daddy as well, Chris Skinner.
Oh, Rat's daddy, yes. Oh, goodness. Oh, look, me shouting like that. We've disturbed our quarry this morning, which is we're on the edge of one of the overwinter wild bird seed mixers here at the farm. And at this time of the year, we have woodpigeons and stock doves galore. Stock doves are a much smaller member of the family and very attractive. Stock doves generally nest in holes. The old oak trees in front of us here got some great big holes in them halfway up the trunks, and they're often frequented by stock doves. They lay 2 eggs inside a nest hole, and the woodpigeons, I suppose woodpigeons outnumber stock doves by at least 20 to 1, and probably more than that, just because of the shape of the beaks, which I'll explain about in a minute or two.
And when we arrived, they were all up in the treetops here, weren't
Yes, it's mid-morning here at Hyash Farm, and they've all had a feed, and I thought if you were here a little bit earlier, we would actually sort of see the flocks in action. At this time of the year, both the stock doves and the wood pigeons form enormous feeding flocks. They roost together in the top of trees during the hours of night, and in the daytime they feed together. And if they find a food source that's easy, that has grain in it, particularly at this time of the year, remember harvest is finished, we're well past the middle of November already, and so seed, it starts to become very valuable for them. Although wood pigeons, their diet is much wider than it is for stock doves. Stock doves will eat generally tiny seeds. They've got quite a short, delicate beak, and they're about a third smaller than a wood pigeon, to give you an idea. Very attractive dove-like birds. The wood pigeon's a bit more of a thug, and it's got a little hook on the end of its beak as well. So it eats quite large seeds, as large as acorns. It'll eat sweet chestnut on the woodland floor as well. And its favourite food, if it can get it, is grain, and its beak is quite strong, so it's more adapted to eating grain. So I'm going to have to let this dog out to the truck here, so he's gone off.
The flocks are really quite large at this time of the year, though, aren't they?
Yeah, I guesstimate between 2,500 and 3,000 pigeons feeding here communally every morning, and then last thing in the afternoon they'll have another feed. And we've parked in front of some, there goes one, white bars on the wings giving away, another one flying right over the top of us, and parked by this avenue of oaks. And when you look at the oak trees, they're all covered in ivy. And can you see the black coloured fruit of the ivy, the berries on there, right in front of us?
Yes.
And in December and January, they lose their acidic taste. They become quite sweet. And that's the time of the year pigeons, despite being thundering great birds on these small twigs, they sort of put their wings out. Their legs are quite weak, and they sort of help balance themselves, and they can just about reach to get the berries on the ivy.
It can be quite precarious, can't it? But
Yes.
They need the food, and that's what they do.
Yes, and they'll also, in cold weather, because they can't easily get the cereal grains, or if you have snow, the actual leaves of the cereals, which are much lower nutrition, gets covered up with snow or gets frozen. So they will move their attentions to brassicas, and that's when the farmers get an even redder face, because they'll firstly attack rape, which is a member of the crucifer family. The little petals of the flowers are in a form of a cross, hence crucifer. And they will also attack Brussels sprouts, and another one that we used to grow here at the farm for the dairy herd in the winter months was marrow stem kale, which would be 4 or 5 feet tall, and in cold weather, particularly I remember in 1962 we had quite a harsh winter, and the whole farm was where the kale was grown was blue with the pigeons, and they would feed on it fairly early in the morning and then roost up in the trees during the daylight hours to digest the food, and then just before dusk they would descend back into the fields. There's 2 main feeding parts of the day if food's in short supply particularly, and they gorge themselves on as much green material as they can possibly eat. And anybody who knows about pigeons will say at that evening time, the crop, the sort of absolutely swells up, bigger than a cricket ball, and they store that food and then they digest it when they roost in the tops of trees overnight.
Plump pigeons, though, can prove a bit too much of a temptation for certain birds of prey, and you saw that the other day, didn't you?
Yes, just yesterday, Matthew, my son Daniel and Neil, who works on the farm, were in the farm office. They were looking at some piece of equipment, which they both seem addicted to. They spend hours in there, and they were looking out the window, and there was feathers dropping past the workshop window, and quite a stream of feathers. So they both went outside and looked at the roof, and there was a peregrine falcon. It had caught one of the feral pigeons and was busy plucking it in the gutter and the new building quite high up, and the feathers were just coming off, and it was actually tucking in, and it was without doubt a peregrine falcon with the sort of black moustache there, and quite a large bird, considerably bigger than the female sparrowhawk. And that's Rat. He says, your time's nearly up, look, and he's come back to the truck here and has asked to come back in. All right. He's had a little look round.
And pigeons will murmurate, won't they?
Yes, not to the same extent that starlings do, but they certainly feed together and flock together, and almost a river of pigeons arrives here in the morning. There'll be one or two come down to feed, and that seems to be the sort of seeding point for the larger flock. And then they'll come in from all sorts of directions, but usually they're coming in from one particular area where they've been roosting overnight. And you just watch this corridor of pigeons flying over the farm buildings and heading for one of these fields where all this food is available. So nesting, I suppose, quite early on, particularly for wood pigeons, march a flat platform of sticks, and always in both species, and of course turtle doves and collared doves, all members of the same family, the wood pigeon and the stock dove, as well as our feral pigeons that you'll see, which have the nickname on the farmers street peckers, because you'll see them in Norwich and particularly in London, Trafalgar Square. They all lay 2 eggs, hence a pigeon pair. That's where that comes from. And then after about 17 days, generally the male incubates the eggs in daylight hours, and he will call to the female. She's allowed to go off and feed, and it's always with a wood pigeon that 5-note call. It's it finishes like that, and the stock does very different, very monotonous and repetitive. It's and I hear that quite often in the woodland, but they're beautiful little members of the dove family. And now turtle doves, which were common through my childhood, members of that same family, have become really quite scarce now. And if we get a call or an email on the podcast that somebody's seen them somewhere in Norfolk, particularly on hot July days, they'll perch up on telephone wires and have that lovely sort of purring sound that they make, and no other bird kind of makes that sound. It's just a continuous sound. It just sounds like a cat purring, but carries quite a distance, and I absolutely love it. So the pigeons are welcome here because it's overwinter wild bird seed mix. When I started doing this in 2007, 2008, growing cereals which are not harvested, the local farmers all kind of turned their back on me, that I was feeding the villains of the piece, if you like, because they are a real pest. I suppose no other bird species in the UK causes as much damage to brassica crops as wood pigeons. But then it kind of went quiet on year 3 because all the local farmers growing rape in the area, or brassicas, we've got some market gardeners around here as well, they stopped having a problem with pigeons because they were all at high ash. So every cloud can have a silver lining.
This week's Countryside podcast has taken wing, and we've got much more to come, including some of your letters as well. We're at High Ash Farm, just outside Norwich, a square mile of Norfolk countryside, and Farmer Chris Skinner is our guide, so plenty more to look at, I think,
yes,
Chris.
we have. Right, we'll start the truck up. Seatbelts on.
Rat wants to move on as well.
Yes, he does. He's impetuous, to say the least.
Just to prove your point, Chris, a whole river of pigeons.
Matthew, we're just leaving the field, and I really had to just stop the truck for a moment because this corridor of pigeons suddenly went past us, and they're landing in the top end of the field where we've just driven from, and wonderful. And then we've come to the bottom edge of the field. This was quite tall grass a week ago, and the sheep have been on this little bit of grassland at the end of the overwinter wild bird seed mix. So it's short grazed grass. The sheep have done a wonderful job, and a flock of starlings, perhaps 200, 250 in front of us, and the sheep have done their business, and they've also pooed on the pasture here and grazed it to nothing. It's as short as anybody's lawn. There they go. They just come up off the ground and landed again, and that's absolutely typical. And if you watch the back of the flock of the starlings, once they've fed in a little area, the ones at the rear take off and leapfrog over the top of the others. It's like a little sort of caterpillar track that you would see on one of the big machines we use on the farm. So the rear comes up over the top and lands in front of everybody else.
And there's some more coming in.
There they go, look, watch.
Yes,
There
from
you
the
go.
back to the front.
Yes, back to the front.
There we go.
And again, the whole lot go up. Just they're always on the
There we are.
sort of being vigilant for any.
That's a mini murmuration.
Yes, there's 200, 250 there, and they'll probably come back on this grass. It's their favourite place to graze, and ideal for it after the sheep have just grazed off this area. So they're just flying over. Their preference is short grazed grass, although they're right beside a crop of standing barley, and they're coming right over the top of us. Yeah, wonderful.
And when we arrived down here, they were all in amongst the pigeons, weren't
Yes,
they?
they do communally feed. The pigeons are actually on here, and they're eating the freshly emerged grass. Remember, we haven't had a frost here in Norfolk, so the grass is young and it's tender, and wood pigeons, apart from eating seeds, will eat tender shoots of plant. Again, which now you know why farmers have red faces, because they got pigeons on the farm, and you hold your breath and exasperation with all this wildlife. So, right, we must get on with our next bit, or we'll be here all day.
It's a bright day here in Norfolk, some blue sky, but the wind is coming in. It does feel distinctly autumnal now with a cold northerly wind, and the leaves are coming off as well, and they're all over the forest floor here.
Yes, Matthew, we're in the centre of the largest area of woodland at High Ash Farm here. We've been here lots of times. Fox's Grove, sweet chestnut trees, giant trees over there in the background. That's going up a good 100 feet tall, and it's got a girth on that exceeds mine, which is quite impressive, and a huge Corsican pine there. The first branches are 80 feet up the trunk. That's an amazing piece of woodland here. So another one right in front of us. Look at that, gun barrel shape, and the first branch is at 50 feet up.
So that's a Corsican, that one.
That's a Corsican
Not
pine.
a Scots.
No, different. You'll notice they don't have that traditional flat top, which Scots pines develop when they mature.
And the
It's
buzzards love these, don't they?
They do. The top of them is so dense, and this area of woodland, we went in an area last week on last week's podcast to look at the foxgloves which were germinating on the woodland floor, and before we started the podcast I got you to look upwards, and we were right underneath this big structure of sticks. Probably started off as a carrion crow's nest 10 years ago, and it's been used the last 2 or 3 years by the buzzards here at the farm. So lots of success with the buzzards, and we're on the edge of a very large badger set here at the farm. It's my pride and joy. There's over 50 entrance holes, and I think if you could calculate the little corridors underneath, the sort of labyrinth of burrows, they're all 10 inches diameter and even larger. Some of the holes lower down on the set I can just about crawl in myself. They're enormous.
I bet you're tempted, aren't you?
Well, Rat's very tempted, and that's why I'm keeping an eye on him. That he
where
is
is he?
staying above ground at the moment. There's a clump of rhododendrons lower down there, and I think he's just disappeared in there.
All the soil is yellow. It's clearly sand.
It's sandy, and it's on a sloping hillside, so it's ideal sort of badger territory.
These lunar craters.
Yes, and I think they're called our original landowners. They're mammals. They're members of quite a large family. So you've got polecats involved, stoats, weasels, otters, badgers, and they all have sort of developed different habits, although they're all members of the same family. Mustelids, things like pine martens have become trapeze artists, otters have become specialists in water, and badgers with their short legs, which we're standing on the edge of their set here, expert diggers, really powerful front ends. And I thought, because of all the sweet chestnut trees here, I will put my little trail camera here and film them opening up the sweet chestnuts, which is what they do with their paws. They're very delicate about it, and they open the sweet chestnuts up with all those little prickle spines on, and then gorge themselves, very high nutritious, with the sweet chestnuts. And so I popped the camera where we're standing on the edge of this tree and popped it over there, so the ground is littered with these little prickle cases, and I thought, oh, well, that will make a nice video. And what I hadn't realised, if you step forwards a little bit cautiously, because this is accidentally what I filmed, and it's the whole area here, it's quite a big area, is a badger latrine. It's their toilet. And it's interesting to bring you here because all those mammals that I mentioned, they're all specialists. Stoats and weasels for speed and dexterity and going down small burrows. They all have different food sources, but they've all developed in different ways. And so the badger has developed something. They've got a gland under their tail. So each set of badgers, clan if you like, has its own particular perfume, its own smell, and they mark their territory way out around the periphery of it and quite close to the set itself.
But they have a designated area for the loo, do they?
Yeah, they do. Let's just see.
I can see the evidence there.
Let's just see. Look at this. This is perfect.
Oh, that looks freshly dug.
Yes, it's freshly dug. It's all in the same area, and you do have to be careful because the set collapses from time to time, and it can go down 5 or 6 feet, these large sort of holes, so it's a bit of a hazardous site to bring you here. So I'm just going to go down on my hands and knees, because if we'd looked at this latrine 2 or 3 weeks ago, it would have been absolutely full of stones and pips from the Victoria plums in the orchard. And at this time of the year, the badgers eat like there's no tomorrow. The females are all pregnant. They come back into heat not long after the sows, the females, have given birth. There's at least 16 badgers in this particular part of the set, and the set's now split and has moved further up the hill as well. So it's like a double set, if you like. And so they eat a lot, so obviously a lot comes out of the other end.
And we have video evidence.
And so from this mistake that I made, thinking I was filming one thing, I've caught 5 of the badgers coming out in quick succession, all over about a 15-minute period, and they all visit the latrine. And they either have a wee or a poo here, but before they do that, they'll dig out a fresh little spot, and you can see a vertical hole here, about 8 inches diameter, and they squat over that, and then they poo in the hole, and when they've done, they cover it up. So just 1 or 2.
It's quite hygienic in a way,
yes.
Isn't it? So that this maybe is a survival instinct over the years they've learnt.
Yes, because it's not attracting diseases or too many sort of parasites in a particular area. Remember, when you're living in one spot, which badgers do, rats just come to investigate.
Yeah, as long as that's all he does.
Yes. No, I don't think he'll eat this. So when you spend all your life in one particular area, you have parasites coming in, fleas, lice, worms, all of the parasites that happen if you live in one particular area. So if you can adopt hygiene, and badgers seem to have adopted that to a very high level, not only using a latrine, but they take fresh bedding down into the set. They'll be taking these dry leaves down. They're all lovely and crunchy and dry at the moment, so they roll that up, and the sows and even the boars will help with replenishing bedding. They bring the old bedding out where there's straw or hay available nearby. They'll wrap it in their front legs and walk backwards and take it down into the set. It's lovely to see.
Never underestimate the badgers, because as we've learnt with Chris over the weeks, they've got quite a complicated social structure.
Yes.
They've got a hierarchy here.
Absolutely,
and their habits and behaviours really are quite complex.
Yes, exactly. I can remember they're mammals and we're mammals, and I'm just regarding them really equal to myself here. This is their home. Their main diet is worms and beetles. They'll dig out wasps' nests, and so the diet is very wide. They'll eat fruit, the blackberries at this time of the year.
They'll climb these trees.
And they go up trees during the winter months, and some of the trees around us will have the claw marks on them because they're after the snails and slugs, which during the hours of darkness, at this time of the year, you have the light coming through on the southern side of the trees, and it's a green bloom. It's called Pleurococcus, and it's like a vertical pasture for our invertebrates, slugs and snails, and the badgers love those, and they will kind of use their very powerful 5 claws on each front foot. Quite long claws, and they kind of shin up the trees. And when you see the video, they're like barrels, these badgers are. How they can get themselves up off the ground, I don't know.
They are quite sated at the moment, aren't they?
At the moment, because of the huge amount of food available, natural food for them. And when you see them, you'll think, my goodness me, they just look like a sort of 200-litre barrel. They're just extraordinarily obese at this time of year. But look at the size of the footprints in this freshly moved soil. I'm sorry to bring you to a latrine, but there's always something to learn, because this, if we both bent down and had a sniff, it's not particularly unpleasant, but it is the unique smell of this badger set and all the clan that's here, and that's why the boar badger will take himself off to what he regards as the limit of his territory, and he will poo or wee there as well, and that's his territory, and he'll defend it, and all the other custodians that live in this particular part of the set. But it's wonderful. It's all part of the woodland ecology. We've got to make room for the wildlife, and that's why it's welcome here. And I'm really pleased to see Rat's decided not to descend down one. He's checking out all the holes, but they'll be underneath us somewhere, fast asleep at this time, eating off last night's chestnut supper.
Nut cutlet. The badgers. We never see them in daylight, of course.
No, strictly nocturnal.
The ducks at High Ash Farm going in to roost for an evening. Hey everyone, it's Matthew here, and if you've been enjoying our countryside podcasts, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yes, Matthew. What we're going to do is to ask for a small donation to help run the podcast, and any surplus goes for conservation at High Ash Farm here. And so it's really important. We both love to keep the podcast going, and that duck agrees with me, I think.
Well, it's straightforward to donate. You can make a one-off donation or set up a small monthly contribution, and the address is highashfarm.com/podcast.
We're hugely grateful for any support. It means we can keep sharing the stories of the countryside, which I love doing each week, but it's that small amount of costs we need to cover. So thank you very much in advance.
We've repaired to the farm truck. Rat looks like he's enjoyed himself out and about. And here we are with another pile of paper from the emails that you've sent us. Wonderful to read all your emails. And it was also great, Chris, a few days ago to be in Sheringham on the North Norfolk coast to meet so many people who enjoy your podcast.
Yes, it's always hugely rewarding, and I just felt very at home in the theatre. I know it's an odd place for a farmer to be, but I sat down. We got a very receptive audience who love the countryside as much as I do. I just sat down. Do you know what? I felt completely at home just talking to friends. So it wasn't a kind of stage act or anything. And I love sharing the Norfolk countryside with anybody who's interested. It's my home, but it's an equal home to all the animals that spend their entire lives there. We just visited those badgers, and if you like, if you can cope with a badger on his latrine, then visit High Ash Farm Facebook after this Sunday, and do smile, because they're all in quick succession using the toilet that we just visited.
Phil, who's from Devon, but he was in North Norfolk for your talk. He organised a whole week's holiday around your show, Chris. And he says, I was wanting to know where Chris is thinking of forward-thinking modes of agriculture, like permaculture and agroforestry, how you don't have to confront nature all the time, you can work with it, but also getting crops incorporated into arable farming as well as just wildlife farming. So is there a halfway house?
Yes, it is a difficult marriage to succeed in. I must put it like that to start with, because here I've also invited the public on the farm, and the public and wildlife are like almost opposite. When you have lots of people coming to visit a particular site, puts pressure on. We've just driven round and we've just seen perhaps getting on for 1,000 woodpigeons, 200 or 300 starlings all feeding community, some goldfinches, and then just as we drove down the road, a wonderful flock of corvids there, some rooks right by the road within 20 yards of us. They all felt safe and at home. So that's the first challenge. The second one is food production, and the way it's gone recently is for very large machinery. On our earlier podcast, we visited a local agricultural firm and we saw some of the giant harvesters as well. They're actually quite frightening, the size of them, but nobody really wants to produce food. Very few people want to actually work on farms. It hasn't got very high street cred, and but you have to be very.
What are we going to eat?
This is the whole problem. This is it. So to mix the two, agroforestry to combine with agriculture, that means you can put strips of trees down fields, which are currently arable fields, and then have strips between, which is just the width of a combine. But of course, when you go around High Ash Farm, and you will actually notice all the animals that will feed on the crops. So because when you've got trees, it's habitat for things like rabbits and hares and all sorts of other mammals, and they'll come in and eat the crops. Whereas when you have large arable fields, it's very efficient because you can use the large agricultural machinery that's available these days. And so it goes right the way through, whether it's permaculture, agriculture, forestry, to blend it all together. So you tend to have specialist areas where you have just arable farms and just wildlife farms, which is what I've done. Not because I'm a bad farmer have I converted to wildlife. It's because we're sitting in some woodland, and no way can anybody get a tractor and plough up that hill. It's sort of 45-degree angle.
This has been wildlife friendly for generations.
It has, really, just by the soil types as well.
And the bluebells just over the way there.
And of course it's a wildlife haven, and it's part of our living heritage. The bluebells, the early purple orchids that are all around where we're sitting. You wouldn't know any of this is there at the moment because it's going through its cycle of the sort of winter rest period. So it's a lovely question. I could do a whole afternoon in Sheringham Little Theatre just on that question, and I'd love to, but podcast means you're restricted to very short answers, and I'm not very good at those.
Well, Joe and Stuart from Lowestoft were in the audience on Sunday at Sheringham Little Theatre, And they want to know, what do you do about rats on the farm? And they say in brackets, not the dog. So
Right.
don't worry, rats.
No rats here on my lap.
Can you suggest a way of deterring them from domestic gardens?
Yes, there is a way, and I've had to learn the hard way because when I first started doing a livery at the farm, the girls would have all their feed bags in paper bags, and so the first rule was I made a lovely feed store, and everybody who has horse food, whether it's rolled oats or all the different bits and pieces that horses eat, they all have to be in special bins with lockable lids, so no food spilt anywhere. And also all around the farm I've got bird feeders, and I've learnt to use bird tables with suspended feeders above the table, so any food that drops out goes on a table which is the rats can't get to. If you eliminate their food source, they're very clever mammals. They will move elsewhere. So I now don't have to do any rodent control at all. I haven't even got a rodenticide license for using modern rat baits because I don't need to, because I've done what I can to deter them, and it's worked a treat.
Francis and Chris were in the audience at Sheringham. I'm sorry, we're getting lots of these, but it's lovely to hear from you. They said, what a way to spend a dull, dreary Sunday afternoon. We could take that both ways, really.
Yes, I know.
But they say they've got this new tradition. Every week they listen to your podcast, Chris, whilst lounging in bed on a Sunday morning. I think that's wonderful. And Ian Smith has been in Costa Rica, had to smile last night listening to the podcast, had just been on a night walk in Costa Rica with a ranger, a wildlife ranger. We saw a different selection of animals to you. Three-toed sloth, bullfrogs, tree frogs, birds asleep in the branches, and a toucan.
Wow.
I know about toucans.
Yes, I know. Sure. Yes, it was a drink, a species of beer years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, a certain porter from Ireland.
Yes, I can remember that.
Oh, here are the
very well.
photos.
Yes,
Look at that beautiful
and there's the toucan, fast asleep, clutching a branch, three-toed sloth.
Oh, I love sloths.
I've
modelled my whole career on a sloth.
You beat me to that one, Gudgeon. Yes.
Costa Rica, you see, we're going far and wide here. Here's another one from Caroline Morton. I'm sure that you will have had many emails wishing you all the best for your event this afternoon. This came in on Sunday. We're on our way, having driven from Yorkshire for a weekend visiting family in Royston and London for remembrance services. This time a slight diversion to Sheringham and a chance to meet a much admired team of podcasters, Rat included, with the utmost admiration both for the podcast eagerly awaited each week and for a new venture like today. Didn't have time to visit High Ash Farm though. But
thank you very much. And yes, we had visitors from Devon to come all the way to Sheringham, and another gentleman drove all the way down from Hull. I can't believe it. It's a 200-mile journey.
And Francesca was in the audience as well. Thank you, Francesca, for your note. I felt your presence, Rat, on the stage today, although you were probably having a good old nap, dreaming about your next adventures.
Yes, he wasn't far away. I did bring him to Sheringham, but he would have stolen the show in the theatre, so without a doubt, and everybody would be looking at him. And
we don't want to be upstaged at this point, do we? Really?
Absolutely not. And there's a great likelihood of that happening. He's such a sweetie, and he teaches me something every day. And I hope, as it's such a great opportunity for the Norfolk countryside to teach us, and that's what I love sharing, which is why we do this podcast.
Well, who knows? We might be back on a stage at some time in the future, but we're not really sort of natural stage animals, are we?
No, we'd be upstaged by Rat anyway.
Chris at countrysidepodcast.co.uk for comments and questions, whatever you like, send them along, and we'll do our best to read as many out on our future episodes, which are published on a Sunday morning, the day of rest, but not for you.
No, absolutely. And don't forget High Ash Farm Facebook to watch badgers at their latrine.
You just treat us every week, Chris.
I do.
This is a Soundyard production. Music is by Tom Harris.
Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. Our new service, Spoken Stories, is an incredible experience where we record the stories and voice of your loved one, which you can then hold on to forever.
It makes for an incredible gift and anyone can make one. Take a listen to this. It beautifully captures the thoughts and feelings of life from a 6-year-old's perspective.
I'm 6 years old and I love running around. I can run very, very fast, but I'm even faster on my bike. That's why I love biking. It makes me feel energetic. And also, I bike loads of places. I like doing sports like dodgeball. The people that are in charge in the world, well, I think that there should be no one in charge at all. So everyone's in charge. So there's no person that's in charge. So everyone is a bit more free. That's what I think. Well, what I try to change at the moment is global warming. It's when us humans litter, destroy the planet and all its nature. That's global warming. It makes me feel sad. And also, if us humans keep doing that, it could destroy the whole planet Earth, and then all of the human beings will be destroyed. I try to stop global warming, and also in my coat pocket I have a bit of Kit Kat litter I found on the floor once. I love the planet more than anything. Grown-ups should be stopping global warming, because grown-ups are more powerful than kids. But if kids can be more powerful than grown-ups, kids and grown-ups can work together and do it. Kids should be able to do the same things as grown-ups. They should have more rights. Well, I love myself because that I believe in a lot of things. That's what I love about myself. I like being a kid, but because when I'm a grown up, I'm gonna have my own kids because that's what I want. And also, I'm a bit worried to have kids, and I'm still gonna be a kid for a long time. So I'm glad that's actually gonna happen. I'm glad I'm gonna stay a kid for a long time. I'm gonna have kids because I want to know what it feels like to be a parent. I'm gonna be a good parent.
Isn't that just gorgeous? If you'd like to find out more about recording a spoken story of your own, or you'd like to buy this as a present for someone, take a look at our website, www.soundyard.org/spoken stories, and take advantage of our introductory offer. Alternatively, you can get in touch via email, hello@soundyard.org.
And if the internet isn't an option, you can leave a message with your details on our landline number. It's 01603 273 899, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.